Welcome to Intersecting Voices, a podcast where diverse stories collide to inspire change and amplify voices. Welcome to Intersecting Voices, the podcast where we explore identity, resilience, and the complex intersections that shape who we are. I'm your host, Sonia Perez, and today I'm honored to speak with someone whose story reflects transformation, advocacy, and unwavering strength. Joining me is Kim Sabate, a 35-year-old transgender woman originally from the Philippines. After transitioning at 22, Kim carved a path through corporate spaces in the Philippines and the UK, from call center floors to HR leadership. Today, she's a recognized DEI champion in the energy sector, recently awarded by the Offshore Energies UK for her work promoting inclusion. Kim's story is one of perseverance, representation, and purpose. In a climate where trans rights remain under threat, her voice is more important than ever. So let's dive in. Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Sonia. That's a wonderful introduction, and I'm very honored to be part of your podcast, and I'm excited to see how our discussion would go.
Oh, excellent. Maybe we can start with the early years in the Philippines, and what was your journey with your gender identity?
Yeah, sure. So I've shared this story many times, and that is because I really would want to, let people understand that transitioning or being a transgender person doesn't happen in 24 hours. Many of us went through this journey for the rest of our lives, and many of us have been into this journey since we were little. And as far as my memory would serve me, I feel I started manifesting, or not really manifesting, but showing signs that I may be trans, or I might be different in a way that my identity and my sexuality differs from the ones that I was assigned at birth. Was when I was 5. So a bit of a background about my personal life. So I'm an only child. My dad passed away when I was little. So then my primary care were my grandparents, who's no longer with us, and then later on I moved on with my mom when I was 5. So as far as I remember, I used to live with my grandparents, and one memory that really I could not forget is when my grandmother told me not to sit down when I am peeing. Which is not a typical say behavior that you would see from as a society would dictate, like a male person should be peeing standing. But for me, I had to sit down, and she would say, like, never sit down when you're peeing, and probably that's just telling me that that should be the role, and that should be um the behavior that I should be exhibiting. And then I moved on with my mom. And then when I grew up, I express myself through art, and I started to learn how to dance. Up until when I was in high school, I used to, um, I, I used to dance, and that was just my expression of about like being myself. And this is not even not even about um my identity at this time. But then later on, as I continue to grow, and as I continue to become mature, I then realized that that was actually part of me discovering my identity. And then when I moved into the university, when I was 18, that was then I expressed my feelings and my understanding about myself to my mom, which was a tough one. So I told her that I might be gay, but I lived in that understanding that I am gay but still, I'm not, say, satisfied with that, and I still feel like, no, I'm actually not gay. There's something different really that's, happening here, and it's not just because I identify as gay, but that's probably because as well in the Philippines, transgender people, or anyone that's anyone that's born male, and then they exhibit like the female characteristics or the female behavior that's regarded as gay. So I guess to put that really in a context, like in the Philippines, there's male, female, and then there's the third sex. So it's either you're gay male, or a tomboy, or a lesbian. So that's the only, those are the only four identities, or you know that's recognized in the Philippines. And then when I did my university degree in psychology, I've read it in one of our books around transsexualism. Um, and then that's then how I see myself as, because, like, I've read it in the book, and it aligns to how I see myself and how I understand myself. So there's not much evidence that would back that yet, because this is like an early stage of the internet, and there's not a lot of like books, or like actual lived experiences from other transsexual people. And this is the time as well when there's not much studies done, so I can only refer it to that one single textbook where I've read it. And I thought, like, you know what, this is exactly what I feel. And I know that I am trans. And then until I met someone when I started working, she used to work in Japan as an entertainer, and I didn't know that she was trans until she came to me and said, like, I'm actually trans. And she told me her life story, and I felt like, okay, that is exactly how I'm feeling at the moment, especially on her early years of experience as well. And that's how I've discovered. And again, it's really down to me self-discovering and understanding my own self.
No,
Sorry if
that's
that was too long.
no, that was perfect. Something made me reflect, when you were talking about gender stereotypes, men, P standing,
Mhm.
it's a lot wider than that. And I think, it starts from birth. I remember, like, well, I have a very young child. She's an only child. So she's a girl. And I just see like the dynamics with other parents in the way that I mean when I was young, like a child, and my brother was a lot younger than me. My friends and I will dress up with my mum's clothes, and we'll go and do like playbacks and stuff like that. And obviously, my brother will follow. He was dressed up with my mum's clothes and his shoes, and at no point, anyone had an issue with that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just children playing. But I've seen like friends with my daughter, like she's dressing up, another like friend dresses up and is like, oh, but it's a boy, people like get really upset, like you're going to make, you're going to mess with their gender identities. Like, no, I don't think so. I think that's something wrong with, isn't it? And at the end of the day, it's about people. It's not about men or women or whatever you want to call it. It's about people. And there is so many kind of shades of gender identity. Is not one or the other, is I don't understand, like, why we are so hung up on these stereotypes. It
Yeah.
puts people into identities that don't belong to them. Um, and yeah, so that was really interesting. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
I do wonder, like you mentioned, like this journey was very lonely, as I hear, and I recognize I'm a little bit older than you, but I do, well, obviously, I do recognize that there wasn't a lot of internet or conversations around things like this. And I remember like when I wanted to learn about something like sexuality, for example, it was like the encyclopedia in my home. There's
Yeah.
obviously a lot of information there. But for you specifically, so you, um, I guess you're going through all this journey without really, this is a very long time without you really knowing what's going on. And I wonder, what was your relationship with your um, biological sex? Like when you see yourself and you feel something isn't right, I'm not
Yeah.
quite myself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. And look, I'd say I am very open and transparent about how I see myself, and I do recognize that I was, born male with, with the male characteristics and the male physical part. When I was younger, I think it wasn't really that much of a problem because, when I was little, I'm too focused on, like doing arts. I'm too focused on my hobbies. Focus on, like other things that I enjoy as a kid. Um, I think that only has started to become like a problem in a sense that I'm starting to feel a bit of like a body dysmorphia, insecurities around my body when I started my transition and realizing that this is not really, who I am. And I know some people probably would see this differently, but at that point I actually feel that um I was living in a different body. um like if I see myself in the mirror, I would say like, oh, this shouldn't be the body, and this shouldn't be how I should look physically. So then it was really um a time where I've told myself, well, I need to do something about it, because I know internally that you know internally I know that I am like different, but my body proves me otherwise, that it's I mean, there's not really an alignment there. I mean, that's I guess what I'm trying to say. So then yeah, when I was 22, that was the time that I started working and earning money. And that was as well the time where the internet really is um you know popular in my country. And I used to work in a call center where there's unlimited access of internet. So I started doing my research, and with that person as well that I used to work with. She's given me some guidance as well, on how she navigated her life, and how she came into to that journey. And so, yeah, I mean, it was, again, as I said, it was a lot of self discovery, and it was a lot of like, I would say self improvement as well, because it was not just the physical that I was as well trying to improve. It was as well mentally, and as well, and like psychologically, like improving myself, and understanding that because I know I'm not a man, then I should be, otherwise, eliciting a behavior that is similar that of, a woman. So, I had to, yeah, I had to do a lot of that self discovery to get me here.
And so, what was, I guess, the reaction from your family and friends when you decided to go through this transition?
Yeah, so my friends, they're not really shocked. I mean, because they're really my go-to people. And I think they're the ones who embrace me first and then embrace my reality first. Um, so when I was in high school, that was then like I expressed more about myself in terms of my identity and my sexuality, who I'm attracted with. Um, and my friends were like fine with it, you know. I have like 12 women in our high school group, which we are still in contact right now, and they're still my same circle. um and they all understand it. I mean, they may not have understand the entire journey at that time, but they were happy to accept, but the challenge really was with my family, and I'm sure you can agree me with this. I come from a very conservative Catholic family where religion is a top, you know, um, I would say not a top priority, but religion is what drives the family values. And if you do something wrong, then you're going against the teachings of the Bible or whatever. So it was tough, but also I really had to deal with it because that's my reality, that I have this family who probably really wants me to um you know to to live the life that I should live because I was born differently. But they didn't understand that. Again, one of my aunts at that time, she said that I'm going to hell because of my choices and because of what I'm doing. And my mom, you know, now that I'm older, I do understand how much struggle she probably had. Just because of all those situation and what's happening with me. And again, I'm an only child, and in every parent, I do understand that you want your child to have the best life, right? But for her as well, it's struggle because again, there's that family values, there's that in Catholic beliefs, but also at the same time, you need to be supportive of with your kid. So when I finished my university degree, I left home and I did not come back until a year. And that is me, you know, that was a time as well, again, that I was doing a lot of self discovery. And also that was a time where I was full of hatred and I was full of, resentment to my family, that thinking, they should be the first who should support me. Um, and then they didn't see me until I already transitioned. So I remember the day when my mom and my stepdad, um, you know, um, they really wanted to see me. And I said, well, I'm not coming home, but if you want to see me, you know where I live, you know where I am. So they came to see me. And, I remember the surprise in their faces when they saw me in the full female clothes with the hair grown and, really resembling that of a woman physique. And my dad didn't speak to me. My stepdad didn't speak to me the entire time. My mom, at some point, she was crying, telling me if this is really what I want. And I said, this is not what I want, but this is who I am. And then that's where then she realized that, okay, all I need to do here now is to be really supportive with my kid.
That's really powerful. It seems like what you said. This is not what I want. This is who I am. That is so important
Yeah.
to understand. And as I think one of the things that I've realized about my family. I have a very small family. We're very close together, but sometimes there is, I guess, situations where I felt alone. Probably because just like you, I didn't understand myself for a very long time. So I was diagnosed neurodivergent very recently, and that explained a lot of the things that came through. It was like this kind of them not understanding me and giving me grief for things that I couldn't really control or understand. Um, what I've come to realize is we are all in a journey, like the same way that you and I are in a journey. Our families are too, and they've grown with a certain understanding of the world, and with gender stereotypes as well. Especially, I think everyone has, but I think men probably have the burden of the strongest stereotypes, the most rigid ones. So I'm really glad that you eventually got to a position where your family understood and they supported you. But it sounds like the journey was difficult without them. Um, okay, well, yeah, it was quite deep. So I wonder, like, how. So you mentioned in your social media um, about your experience with an abusive partner. Um, so I have that experience too, but I wonder, how they differ between, the LGBTQ plus community. I know that there is extra um, ways to conduct that abuse. So I wonder if you could explain to us a little bit about how you ended up in that relationship, how the abuse was conducted, how you actually managed to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually, that happened about 3-4 years ago now. So I have moved on and healed from that. But all I could say is that abuse is an abuse regardless of your sexuality, your gender identity. But for LGBTQ people, it's, from my experience, it is even harder. So I did not form a relationship with anyone until I was, I don't know, 22, 23. That's when I had my first boyfriend, and then I had a second boyfriend, and then the third boyfriend was my ex-partner. So we got married. So I moved to the UK in 2017, but we met online in 2015. So online dating is very popular then, and even more so now in the Philippines. So we met online after my second breakup, and then we've been chatting for like 3-4 months, and then we started seeing each other in person. So he would travel from the UK to the Philippines, and he did that 4 times in 1 year. So it was really quite, it was, now looking at it, it was actually quite overwhelming, and probably we were rushing. But also at that time, we were really like in love, and we really loved the conversation, and we made a lot of plans. And to me, that was the right thing, and at that time. And again, without having much of experience with relationship, um, I thought like, okay, this is the one. And also with that layer of me being trans, um, I said like, okay, well, it's probably rare then for me to find, or to establish a relationship with someone, because I am trans. Now, I said that because in the Philippines, again, um, we are tolerated, but we are not really fully accepted by the society. And also, if there's one thing that I don't really appreciate in the Philippines, is that many trans people in the Philippines are only seen as, provider, moneymaker by their partners. And to me, that doesn't just align. I mean, that does not align with my values, and I don't really believe that, you need to have a relationship with someone just because you're getting a financial benefit out of it. So, you know, it has to be both ways, and it has to be balanced. Um, so then, when I met him, I thought like, oh, everything is just real. And and I was 25 at that time, and then I moved to the UK, as I said, in 2017, under like, as a fiance. we've lived together for six months. And then we decided to get married, and because everything was going well, and he's supportive, um and my family as well loved him, like especially my dad. And he was the one that really, I should say, helped me make up that decision to choose this person, because with my previous relationships, he never had any interaction with them. He never speak to them. But when this, when my ex came over and he met him, that his interaction has changed, and my dad struggles to speak English, but he really made the effort to communicate with him. So I thought, like, okay, well, maybe this is really the one, because if my parents are seeing the same, or having the same experience with them, then certainly. um so I moved here, we got married, and then we've been together for like 4 years, and then COVID happened, which in every relationship that, any relationship during that time, it's either have grown stronger, or split up. It was very hard. And then so we've lived together for like almost 24/7, and I think that's when then we see the differences a lot. Um, and and I think that was a time as well when, all our like we started to argue more on things, just because we're not aligned with the views, or he's got a different view and I've got a different view. One of the main um issues that we had is the financial independence. So when I started working, I didn't have my own, bank account. I don't have my own credit cards. Everything has to go through the joint account, which in the beginning I do understand. I mean, we're living together. We're spending money. Bills, like shared bills, and everything. But I thought, like, like, what if I want to buy something for myself, I don't want it to get out of, like the joint account, or, at some point my parents probably would get ill or would get sick. Then, as an only child, I might have the responsibility to help them. So I asked him, I need to open my own joint, I mean, my open my own account, of which he said, it's unnecessary for a married couple. So I said, like, okay. And I thought that it was, yeah, maybe he's right. Like, I don't really need it, because I can get money anyway from the joint account. And then another layer of that, then when I started, like forming like social relationships with my friends here, like, I've met friends in Aberdeen, where I live. He would start to like track me even more where I go. So in that sense, like, he has access to my Google Maps. So he would see me walking on the street, and then we have a massive argument when one of our friends visited from New York. We went to this club, I mean, to this bar, and then we move on to a club, and then as the night progressed, I mean, we move around, and he wasn't happy about it. So it was about, a bit of control there. Um, and, I thought it was just too much, to a point where I don't really believe that this is a relationship that, we should be having. Um, I do understand and I do appreciate his effort to, like, to bring me over here, which I am very, again, I'm very thankful, because, again, without meeting him, I probably would not be able to, you know, experience all this. However, I just don't, um, again, see the need of us being together anymore, which as well he agreed, because we're not growing together as a couple anymore. We're growing individually. Um, so yeah, so we ended up the relationship. Um, and since our divorce, we have not seen, and we have not spoken to each other.
Okay, that sounds that does sound quite intense. The control, the really the harassment, isn't it? Um, I'm of the opinion that if you can't trust someone, why are you with them? I mean, relationships are all about trust. If you can't have that, then you're missing
Yeah.
the key ingredient.
Yeah, and I think really, again in the beginning, because there was another, like the control really was more, one of the reasons why I got myself out, um, in the beginning as well. I do understand that the need for that was to protect me. Again, that's why he said, like I just want to protect you. And again, when I moved here, no one knew that I was trans, and for him, that's very important that no one would know. Um, so for him, like, I don't want you to be beaten up in the street just because people know that you're trans, or like, and also we got married without his family knowing that I am trans. So it was really, now, if I look at it, it's probably, yeah, an element of that security, and also that element of keeping me as a secret, because none of his friends, none of his family knew. um and then that was the hardest part, because later in our marriage, his family would start, especially his dad would start asking for grandkids, and I was like, well, that's basically, this is it, this is the boundary, and that we should really tell them about it. But he's afraid that that might question his sexuality, or he's afraid that that might end up his relationship with his family. But for me as well, it's like, well, um it's not serving me right anymore. And it's mentally as well, it's like i have to I have to like control everything that I do, in a sense that whatever I post on social media should not tell any signs that I'm trans. I had to delete all my previous posts that would link me to my identity, so that's how it was. And I said, like, this is not right anymore, um so yeah, that was another layer of that. And then I think that, again, as I said, abuse is not different, no different to anyone, but for trans people, it's just sometimes our identity and abuse towards our identity could really exacerbate the entire situation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like masking is so exhausting. And it sounds like you were at a point in your life where you were ready to be yourself, and he was pulling you back, uh,
Yeah.
not being accepted for the whole of who you are. That's tough. That's really tough. So you mentioned about children as well. So was I guess your situation, or your um, about having children, is that something that you ever wanted, or maybe not?
Well, it depends really, but I mean, I like kids, my friends, they most of them have kids, and sometimes I do, volunteer to look after them. Again, when I was growing up, I'm an only child, and I grew up with my cousins. So being surrounded by kids definitely is what I like. Um, and with regard to your question, yeah, I would want to, I mean, if I have that opportunity and chance, and obviously the financial means to provide, then certainly I would. But um at this minute, I mean, I'm not really, it's not a priority that I should have a kid. And I've been open and honest about this to anyone, that if I am seeing someone and if they have kids, then that's actually my preference. Um, in a sense that, you know, some men would probably want to have their own kid, and if they already have, then that's great. And also, it's a win-win for both. Like, I would have a kid without adopting them or anything, like, or something like that. So yeah, I would.
So I was asking, not so much to be nosy, but it's
Yeah.
about the extra layer of, I guess, your journey, how you would. I mean, you may want to have children, but then it's maybe not as easy, the process to have children.
Yeah. So I mean, I already went into the full transition. So, there's no, I would say, like, there's nothing to harvest in me, that would allow me to like, produce kids. But um adoption is like the option that I could really see myself of, like, having kids. But again, it's not really a priority to me. Because again, if I just have to look at the practicality of things, um I mean, I'm not, well, I could be financially capable to look after a kid, but because I'm the only person as well, then that might be a challenge, like looking after a kid and doing a full-time job. Or yeah, and the process in itself as well in the UK is quite tedious and, yeah, challenging. So yeah.
From people who were or tried to go through the process of adoption, and it's much complicated that I
Yeah.
really thought, and it probably takes like years, probably even like 5 years. But I mean, I completely respect your position. Is there's a lot of being a woman, a lot of people expect that we will have children and we will want to have children just because it seems that there is no other purpose in life for a woman than to have children.
Yeah.
Completely okay not
Which
to
is,
have them.
yeah.
So the other question I wanted to ask was about the cultural differences between Philippines to UK and how you adapted from one country to the other.
Yeah. I say there's pros and cons living there and living here as a transgender person. So, in the Philippines, again, we're tolerated, but we're not fully accepted, in a sense that we don't have laws that protects us from discrimination. We don't have any laws that protects us, from harassment or abuse. Um, but the wider society tolerates us. Like, you can see us in, like, in anywhere. And there's even, like, pageants that's dedicated for trans people, where we could raise our own advocacy and share our own stories. um but again, it's more of that, acceptance in the law, that we're missing. We can't change our name, we can't change our gender marker. I mean, we can, but it has to go through legal process, and it's not easy to deal with. Um, and then again, with that country being conservative and, very religious, we are still seen as the, um, people that need prayer, people that need to go to church, because we're seen differently, which is actually hard. And then comparing it to the UK, I think in the UK, well, at least I know it's challenging at the moment, but we have laws that would protect us from any forms of abuse and discrimination. And we have that, um, you know opportunity as well to change our name or gender, and present who we are, um, you know, without having any problems. So I think that's culturally how I see it. But again, also how I see it is that it's quite different. Though this might not sound right, but um, I was talking about this with my friend. She's Scottish and she's trans as well, and then I showed her, what a trans community looked like in the Philippines, and they said, "Oh my God, all of them looks passable." So that means that if you look at them physically, you wouldn't tell that they're trans, basically, because they made all the effort to look like a woman. Like when they transition, they've done all the medical intervention to really look like a woman. And she said, like, is that really how the trans community is in the Philippines? And I was like, yeah. So if you identify yourself as trans, then try and make the effort to really resemble that of a woman. Um, but I know in the Western world it's different. You can call yourself trans, or you can identify yourself trans even without, like removing your beard or presenting differently. And I think that's just one of the things right now that I see is quite different in terms of culture, because again, um in the Philippines, like you don't have the kind of like, not really right, like legal right, but you don't have the right to like call yourself trans if you're not presenting as a woman, or if you don't you know look like a woman. Otherwise you just be classed as someone who's cross-dressing or a gay person.
That's interesting. So you're talking like it almost feels like in the Philippines you don't really have the choice of what level of transition you want to go for. Is if you identify as a woman, then you need to look like a woman and you need to go full transition. However, you were talking about the Western culture. Um, there is different levels of transition you can choose. So, do you think that if you'd have been in a Western culture, um, would your transition look different? You think, or um, are you happy with the level of transition that you? Um,
Yeah, no, I mean, like, not all transition are the same, like not all I do understand that not all trans women are having the same goals towards their transition. But for me personally, my goal really was to look like the person that I admired in a magazine and a television, those supermodels. That was really my personal goal. And again, that is probably the same goal as many trans women in Asia or in Philippines. And I know, and I have a lot of trans friends in the Philippines who are as well, looking at that end goal to really look like, physically to look like like a biological woman. But the only problem is that all of this costs money. So that's like the means of getting there is sometimes a challenge in the Philippines. But here in the UK, now that I am in the UK, you know, we have the medical support. It's not perfect, but we are afforded with that. Like we have, the ability to support us to do our, like HRT, or the hormone replacement, which is part of a transition. If you'd want to go to that route of doing the medical transition, then there's an HRT support, like hormone support, and there's that gender reassignment as well, surgery that the our healthcare system offers to trans people. And I know it's not perfect. Again, there's a lot of issues around that, but we have that option if we would want to. And again, it's case to case basis. Some people might say, I'm happy without going through the medical transition. And again, that leads to what I mean, that confirms to what we said. I mean, what I said earlier, that in the Western world, it's, transitioning is viewed differently. Um, some people are happy to just, like change their clothes or the way they socially present. Um, but in the Philippines, it's really more of like going through the entire phase of it. Like if we could only change our name to reflect our identity, we would. If again, if we have the means to do the full medical transition, then everyone would for sure take it.
I guess reflecting on this, where you grow up and the culture affects a lot of what you aim for. I think the way we dress, like for example, I'm going to say something very silly, but I think it's quite important. Is like for women, so they are expected to wax. They're not supposed to have well,
Body hairs.
body, yeah. And it's like, well, is that a choice that I make every time that I walk, or did I put makeup on, or is it something that I grew up with? It gets so embedded in you,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
feel right not to do it. So you wonder whether it's a choice, or if it's something that is been you've been pre-programmed with it.
yeah, yeah. It is really. And again, just as anyone who's not born trans, each of our journey are really, it's really different. As you said there, like even, like some women are expected to wax and some women are to, I don't know, probably put on makeup or put on feminine clothes to really be then seen as like a beautiful woman or something like that. But it's probably the same as with trans people. And again, it's different. And as I said, it's different how it's seen here in the Western world versus how it's seen in the other side of the world. And who's right? We don't know, because again, every journey is different. And again, it's only up to the person who's been into that journey who can decide what's good for them.
Yeah, I was just, I guess, reflecting on, sometimes we feel or we think that we are choosing our journeys, but I, I do, I do feel that a lot of what we choose is more like something that we've been pre-programmed with rather than an actual choice. Well, that was really interesting. There's another question about gender, but this is to do with politics. So in the UK, we've had a ruling about what gender means, and I wonder whether you can talk a little bit about this and how it's affecting trans people, but not just trans people, like everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So the recent UK ruling, I mean, I've shared this on my social media, and you've seen it, how I am really disappointed, because there's really that lack of um, balance in terms of listening to like the lived experience of many trans people. So they've only look at it from the anti-trans organization's view. So the recent ruling, just to, like to clarify, they they have now clarified that sex refers to biological sex. So that means anyone who's born male, they're male, biologically male, and then anyone who's again female are biologically female, or women is biologically female. So where that becomes a problem is that, say in my position, I was born male, um, and then I transitioned to become female. Um, so that's basically the essence of the ruling, right? To really define what a woman is, and then the differentiation of what a woman and a trans woman, I guess, if you would interpret it that way. So, but the real problem really is the practicality on things. So I'm not alone. There's many of us, and also there's that aspect as well of the trans, the trans men. So these are biologically female women, um, who transition to become male. So if everyone's not familiar with how their transition, I'm not exactly familiar with their transition, but many of them are now looking like men. So again, if we go back to the practical implication of this ruling, that means this men now are expected to use women, you know, spaces. I mean, yeah, if you base it on biology, yes, they should be, but physically, you wouldn't know that these are biological women, or they were born biological women, not unless you ask them, because some of them, even me, I'm a trans person myself, sometimes I find it very hard to identify that they're trans, and unless they would tell me. But I think from a wider society, where it becomes a problem is that, like, now some women who probably would not pass under the society's description of a woman, like some biological women might be, you know might have a masculine feature, or they might look, not feminine enough, then they can be questioned as well, like, why are you here, or are you even a woman? And and this is not a made up story. I mean, if you have seen the Olympics last year, there was this boxer, Algerian boxer, where she won against, in a she won the boxing category for women, and because she looks very masculine, she was then questioned by the society and by the public and labeled as trans, in which she wasn't. I mean, she's a biological woman. It's just that her hormone levels, is quite different from that of a typical biological woman. So that is, one of the issues that we could be seeing, if this continues. And because again, now it's being used um, by many people to really um, pursue their opinion, and what they really think about the trans community, without really even understanding of the identity, and also, of listening to the live stories of any trans people.
So really, and just it's just the irony of it. So what these groups are trying to do is protect women from men. Basically, is a result of misogyny, isn't it? From the
Yeah,
patriarchal society that we live in, and basically what they've achieved is more misogyny. Basically, now women are forced to prove that they are women, like not women, like that they were born women. Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't. Yeah, it's like an aggression to all women. Whether they were born female or not. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's just another
exactly.
layer of it. It's like rather than actually solving the problem. I mean, I've never had. It's just this is things that I've heard in social media on why these groups were campaigning for I guess the ruling that we got is there is men who pretend to be women because they want to, attack women, and it's like, well, no, actually, I don't think men need to do that to attack women. They do it all the time. I mean, I don't. When I walk back home, especially in the dark, I'm not scared of trans people. I'm scared of men, the ones that like men. I'm never like wearing like music and like headphones. I'm I try not to walk alone in the dark. Is you don't take shortcuts, and this is not about trans people. And basically they've just created more misogyny.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And again, I know that their fight is really to protect women. Again, if the term women here would now become, well, it's now biological women, or was born biologically female. If again, that really does not, as you said, protect them, because in in the context as well of like being a trans man, like now any man could come into the female toilet or female spaces and pretend that they're trans man, and that way they don't have to shave, they don't have to present as women, which is even easier for them. If they're really, if they have that ill intent, they could just easily do it, as you said, without even pretending that they are. I mean, without even, putting any clothes or anything. They could just come in and do that. And I know that I do though recognize that some of these though are protecting like sensitive spaces, say like people from the abuse, like women who are abused by men and all that. But also, um, they didn't really look at people from the trans community. This is again another loophole of this, ruling, is that many of us, as we discussed earlier in this, earlier in the podcast, like I'm not alone who probably have experienced abuse, and that was perpetrated by a man. And because now the law has defined me as a man, imagine if I would be put into a man space because I was, whom I know is not, again, that it was an abuse perpetrated by a man, and I'll be put on a man's space. Imagine the the trauma that it would bring, to someone. So that is another thing that they, I'd say that, well, it's not the Supreme Court's, the, you know, they don't have to do it. I guess it's the government really has to do something about it, because they will be the ones who will be implementing, all the changes in the legislation.
And I guess the thing that comes to my mind is that this ruling is supposed to protect, and I'm meaning supposed because I don't think they are, some women. So they are choosing which part of the female population they want to protect. There is so many more women. What you say, like, what about trans women? They are also women. How are they protected? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that is quite disappointing. And I think, misogyny is so
really. Yeah, that's
uh,
the real cause, the root cause.
it's just so much easier to fix, something like a small minority. And I'm saying fix, it's not really fixing, it's attacking a small minority just because it's a lot easier than actually tackling the majority of
Yeah,
the problem.
yeah,
I just have one last question,
yeah,
and this is not to do with gender, it's to do with your career. So we're talking about that. Well, it's quite amazing, like how you started in a was it like a call center, and then you moved into HR, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, how you managed to have that kind of journey.
yeah. So, to be honest, like, well, I have a degree in psychology. And when I got out of the uni, I had two plans to do in terms of my career. First, I wanted to become a psychologist. That was really, like the goal, and probably is still the goal. Or I would become a corporate HR. But when I was in the Philippines, I had a firsthand discrimination experience, just because I'm identifying as a trans person. So I had the opportunity to work in a global company as one of their HR officer, but I turned down the offer. It was me who turned down the offer after I was told that you can't work in HR and at the same time cross dressing. Um, so I had to turn that offer, and then I had to, find another option where I can be myself, you know, and bring myself to work. So then, this was around 2010, 2011, where the call center industry, has begun in the Philippines. And now it's still one of the biggest industries in the Philippines, providing customer service support to clients from other parts of the globe. So I started my career as a call center agent. Um, and I propelled and progressed into call center supervisor. Um, and I really enjoyed it because the only thing that they require is someone who could speak English. They don't care who you are, what your backgrounds are, as long as you're 18 and, you're legally able to work, then you're fine, that's the only requirement back then, like, be able to speak good English and willingness to learn new skill. So I thought, like, okay, well, this is the industry then for me. So I've worked for 6 years until I moved to the UK. So for 6 months I can't work here in the UK because that was part of the visa restriction. And then when I got married, I was then now able to work, and I knew someone who worked in an automotive industry, and she was going into a maternity leave, and she said, well, before they could advertise the role, if you're interested, you have a very good customer service background, which is essential to this role. Would you be happy for me to refer you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that's how I got into my first job in the UK. So I started as a service advisor in one of the like automotive retail services. Um, and then, with me trying to find like professional growth, and I said, like, well, I need to venture out, and I'm sure there's a lot here in the UK that I can as well get into. And then I moved on temporarily to telecoms, leading telecoms company in the UK as customer service as well, um, until I got into my first oil and gas job, and without even realizing that I applied for the job. And it was one of the recruiters. She called me and she said, "Oh, you applied for this role," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize." But yes, if you're calling me now, then yeah, sure, let's have a discussion. And then I went into the interview process, and then I got the job. So this was in 2019. I started my career as a sales admin at that time. So basically supporting all the sales account managers in terms of their sales, and managing their contracts and all that. Um, and then a new manager came in. Which I really owe some of the success that I have right now in my career, because he really supported me with that. He said, well, I'm not saying that admin work is not for you, or admin work is uh, like not a good job, but I just see that you have a lot of potential to move out of that role. And I was like, okay. So he gave me the support. He's like, if you need trainings, if you need to go elsewhere to enhance your skills, then I'd be happy to support you. So then we tried that role, then transform and became a data analyst. So now I looked after, or at that time I looked after the regional marketing market intelligence role. So basically what I do, I did like data research, analysis, providing insights to like the key account managers in our department. And then and I've been doing that for 3 years, which I've enjoyed, because I guess it's a different skill set that I've learned. And then I openly told him that now this is the time for me to probably look into the HR career, because it was a global organization that I used to work as well. So the opportunity of me moving into the HR role is it's highly likely to happen. So I told him, I want to work in HR, and it's been 10 years since I've been wanting to get into the HR career, and now this is the time. Which he said, he's an engineer, so he said, I don't have any background around HR, so I can't give you any like direct guidance or advice, but I can connect you with the right people who might be able to help you. So he connected me with our HR director. They helped me find a mentor, an HR mentor, who offered me, support. And then the opportunity came in. There was a role to support our employer relations HR team. So I was there for a year, and then that role got made redundant. But because of my efforts and all the initiatives that I have been doing around DEI, they managed to keep me and gave me a temporary role to support, like the DEI programs and the DEI team for the organization. And then and since then, that has become my formal role, and up to leading to this role that I have right now with the different organizations. I'm still, like supporting them with their DI programs, and then their, like their DI initiatives. And to be honest, I like it because, again, that's where my personal and professional, it's a professional work, but at the same time, I can bring myself to work, and also I can really, I have a lot of passion to it, because DI might be a new term, but it has always existed, perhaps, when they, when humans came to this world, I guess, like we're always diverse in a way. We're always different in our own ways. And also, I really enjoy, building that inclusive culture that where everyone can feel that they're respected and that they're heard regardless of their backgrounds.
I can definitely agree with that. I feel like I think being through that journey, a journey of inclusion, or the lack of it, you know what it feels to not be included, to be excluded.
Yeah.
So I can see why you're passionate, and I feel very passionate about it too. Well, thank you so much, Kim. This conversation has been really eye-opening for me, and hopefully for the listeners as well. I mean, you bring so many layers to life. It's your professional drive. How you've grown professionally, how you've grown personally as well. Sometimes I think, without even the support to begin with, you've had that strength you took the time to get to know yourself, who you are, who you want to be, and then follow through it. It's really amazing. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. And well, for the listeners, thank you for tuning into Intersecting Voices. And if this conversation has moved you, please share it, rate us, and keep the dialogue going. And until next.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Intersecting Voices podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on Spotify or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you next time.